Notes of information to give you. Obviously, we've been talking about it for about a week now, and you already know it if you have walked outside. It is going to be a very warm Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, but we'll go over if we've seen any changes to the forecasted high temperatures and what pace we look to be on as we head into the afternoon, because that's going to have important implications for record-breaking criteria potentially. We also have a few notes with our drought monitors, so we are going to go ahead and start out with that. We actually got an update a little bit early this week. I imagine the people at the drought monitor are not working for Christmas, so they gave us an update a little bit earlier this week. Nothing to complain about, but it still says the same thing. Most of central Georgia remains under moderate drought conditions with this patch of a severe drought. Over in our westernmost counties, we haven't seen any changes with that. Still portions of Upson County, portions of Houston County, Crawford, Peach, and then most of Macon and Taylor counties are under severe drought criteria, and we haven't really seen anything since the last update as of last week. So we did get some steady improvement with the drought conditions. However, with the latest drought information statement that they do release with the update of these drought monitor updates each and every week, we actually have seen that, yes, we have had some improvement, but this improvement is looking to be short-lived in light of how dry we've been over the past week and how dry we will continue to be as we round out the year of 2025. So it is looking likely that we will see conditions worsen as we head into the new year, and drought conditions are looking to stand for most of the winter. As of right now, winter is forecasted to be rather dry as we transition into January and into February. However, this drought monitor, once again, taking the data as of every Tuesday. So as of yesterday, December 23rd, we just got the release of it a little bit earlier this week, since I imagine those folks will not be in the office for tomorrow. So here's a look at your headlines. A near record warm Christmas. I guess Ben put the palm trees and the elf dancing on this graphic. But we will continue to hold on to the 70s before a big cool down is in store as we do head into the beginning of next week. We'll break down all the details that you need to know. But so far, the quad view all across central Georgia has looked like this for most of the morning. We had a few clouds around during the early morning hours closer to sunrise. That cloud cover did dissipate, but you can still see some signs of it over to the west here at the Georgia National Fairgrounds. And also, taking a look at this sky camera, take a look at your flags blowing from right to left just very steadily, but indicating that we have a northwesterly breeze present across central Georgia this morning. So we have seen a shift in the winds. However, our ridging pattern is going to be a big reason why we are going to see some well above average temperatures this afternoon. So here's a look at the temperature map already. This is 11 a.m. in the morning. Upper 60s, low 70s, 70 degrees in Macon, Cochran down to Eastman and McRae, 72 in Dublin, 72 in Vidalia, 71 in Wrightsville and over to Warner Robins, but everyone else does find themselves just slightly below the 70-degree mark, maybe hovering around 67, 68, or maybe even a 69 like you do see in Montezuma, Unadilla, and in Cordele. So these numbers are already approaching what our high temperature was yesterday afternoon, and a big reason why they are off to a bit of a warmer start. We had some very similar temperatures to yesterday morning, but we were a little bit above what we were sitting at for your morning lows. So already getting a bit of a head start with some morning low temperature values that were just slightly warmer. And along with that, we haven't had the cloud cover sticking around for the morning hours. If you remember yesterday, the cloud cover was a big factor in the forecast, but we saw just enough gaps in the sunshine to lead into a high temperature in the low 70s. However, it does look like with the absence of that cloud cover, we are getting a quicker warm up than the last day or two. So here's a look at your current temperatures all across the eastern United States. 70 in Macon and a 72 actually down in Dublin and Vidalia. That's a good deal warmer than areas over to the west. 63 across Jackson, New Orleans, and down to Panama City. 59 in Montgomery, but not quite as warm as those areas down in Florida. 74 in Jacksonville, 73 down in Orlando, and over to the east and the northeast of us, actually very similar temperatures in Charleston and all the way up into Charlotte, North Carolina. But 74, the warmest temperature on the map, Jacksonville and Laredo, Texas. And our warmest temperature right now, only 2 degrees off of that. So obviously it's a story of mainly 60s across the deep south United States. And then as you go up into the Ohio Valley region, the Great Lakes region of the country, still a rather chilly environment. Some 50s and even a 44 up in Indianapolis and a 49 in Wichita, the only two areas that we do see the 40s on that temperature map. So here's a look at the winds and the wind gust map. Very thankfully, your temperatures are not feeling any colder than what they actually read, because this breeze obviously doesn't really pose an impact to that feels like temperature when you do get above the 50-degree mark, and we are well above that already, approaching the midday hour. But a steady breeze anywhere from about maybe 6 to 7, maybe even 10, 13 or 14 mile per hour sustained winds. So that's what the breeze is consistently blowing at. We did take a look at the Georgia National Fairgrounds. Up to the north of there in Warner Robins, we have about an 8 mile per hour breeze, but an occasional gust already up to 20 miles per hour over in Swainsboro. I don't think the breeze is too much of a factor, but you may notice it at times as you are venturing outside later this afternoon. So let's go ahead and talk about the almanac from yesterday. 42 degrees for a morning low temperature value. That was a pretty chilly start to the day and pretty close to average, 5 degrees above average. But then your afternoon high temperature soared into the low 70s, 12 degrees above your average high of 60 degrees this time of year. But the record yesterday, believe it or not, actually stood at 82 degrees back in 1970. Record low temperature was 15 degrees back in 1989. And then we didn't record any rain. Your departure of rain has actually gone well down, now approaching around 2 inches below where we should be at this point in the year. It looks like we are going to wrap up 2025 with a negative number after we have been positive for a majority of the year. But this very dry stretch towards the last couple of months of the year has resulted in a steady decline of that number that was once a positive 7 inches above where we should have been, but that number has steadily gone down. And we had a brief teeter-tottering at the beginning of the month when we had multiple days of some rain. We went from negative back to positive, negative back to positive, but since it has just been a steady decline into negative territory, and right now we are hovering around 1.75 inches below where we should be at this point of the year. Sunrise yesterday, 7:34, and sunset was at 5:34. So making for, if I'm doing my math correctly, exactly 10 hours of daylight. So we have passed the first day of winter, and that does mean that the hours of daylight are going to continue to steadily increase, but not going to really notice a difference until we get sometime well into January. I think January 25th is set to be our first 6 p.m. sunset once again. And then, of course, sunset getting later and the sunrise will continue to get earlier. But then as we go into the new year, we'll start to talk about when that next time change is going to be. It is going to be sometime in March, I do believe, is when we do spring forward. But for the month of December, we started it off on a very, very cold note. Take a look at how many days you see some blue boxes indicating below average high temperatures. Out of the first 11 days of the month of December, 10 of them were below average, and we had one lone day that actually got up to average back on the 10th. But then we had 2 above average days on the 12th and the 13th. Then we got a very quick cool down courtesy of a frontal boundary that moved through at the beginning of last week. And then since last Wednesday, it has been a stretch of 7 days in a row where we have had above average high temperatures. It's been a very warm stretch of weather. We've seen some bouncing around with these temperatures, but I imagine we're going to add 5 more days in a row where we do see some above average numbers, maybe even 6 days, depending on how cool we do get as of next Monday when our frontal boundary does make its passage through. So 9 days so far in the month that have been above average, and by the time we're at the end of this warm stretch, I do anticipate that tally to be above how many below average days that we've seen. So there were some areas of some morning fog. In the near vicinity of us, we saw one patchy area of dense fog pop up down in Dodge County this morning, but it really wasn't too much of a factor. It has been a mostly clear start to the day, and we will remain mostly clear for the afternoon and the evening hours. But the high temperature is the main headline, 77 degrees. We hit 72 yesterday. That was probably already too warm for your liking. I know personally it was. I went out to the driving range. I had gnats flying around my face, and I was breaking a little bit of a sweat. So obviously today is going to be a little bit warmer than what we felt yesterday, and go ahead and get used to it because it's also looking to be in the forecast for your Christmas day as well. So your meteogram is actually matching up with my high temperature today, which is maybe making me think that I undershot it a little bit. But 77 is going to be a very important number that we'll talk about in just a moment. We're expected to hit that high temperature somewhere around the 2 to 3 o'clock window before we approach sunset, just after the 5 p.m. window, and then the numbers steadily decline. But as we head into the evening, as it's already dark outside, we're still holding on to 70 degrees, and as we go into the hours after that, 7 to 8 to 9 o'clock, we're still going to be somewhere in the 60s. We're actually not going to see too much of a temperature drop once again. You should walk out the door to some temperatures in the low 50s for the morning hours on Christmas Day. So here's your satellite and radar, where we do pick up on some cloud cover that we could get a glimpse of at the Georgia National Fairgrounds. Otherwise, it is crystal clear in central Georgia and across most of the state of Georgia. It is a story of mostly sunny skies here on Christmas Eve afternoon. All across the southeast, we do see some scattered cloud cover, but still no signs of an approaching frontal boundary. So you won't find me making a surface map really until we start to see a frontal boundary kick into gear and start to originate, but it's still a ways away before we're going to talk about a front moving through. So for the rest of today, as we go into the afternoon, maybe 4 o'clock, kind of around the window when many of you are going to that Christmas Eve evening church service, and it still looks like mostly clear skies, still holding on to a bit of a light breeze. Then we go into the nighttime hours. This is where you are going to see maybe a chance of a brief sprinkle. That's not enough for me to really have a good amount of confidence that yeah, we'll see a sprinkle as we go into the nighttime hours, but obviously this is going to have implications for Santa Claus, and it still looks like visibility is going to be good. Santa Claus is used to encountering a couple clouds on his journey through central Georgia and other areas of the world. So once again, don't think it's going to be too much of a factor, and I wouldn't go counting on that brief chance of a sprinkle. If it is going to pop up anywhere, maybe farther up to the north and the northeast, but not going to amount to much. And even if it does pop up, I don't even think you'll need the rain jacket. It's going to be very light in nature, and it will be very short-lived. Now as we go into tomorrow morning, Christmas morning, it's looking like a mostly clear start to the day. We do have some scattered clouds over to the east that may be blocking our image of the sunrise just a little bit. However, what you're not seeing on this is the fog. So we will talk about that in just a moment with our future view fog graphic. I do anticipate maybe a couple areas walking out to some surface level cloud cover, but as we go into the afternoon, whatever is in the way of cloud cover or in the way of fog is expected to clear out of the picture, and a nice and pleasant, mostly sunny afternoon as you go into Christmas afternoon and eventually Christmas evening. And then that takes us all the way into Friday morning, where we do see plenty of cloud cover approaching and some of those overcast and gloomy skies getting in the near vicinity of us as that cloud cover tries to creep over from the west over to the east. Is it going to cover all of central Georgia? That's the big question. I think eventually it does, but right now it does look like that cloud cover with the latest model run of Future View is holding off over to the west until we get into the nighttime hours, the overnight time frame into early Saturday morning. And within these overcast skies, you do have a couple of light showers in a select few areas. I put a 10% chance of rain on Friday. We may need to extend that to Saturday as we come in tomorrow, but right now it is still looking like a mostly dry forecast. Like I said, these light showers really not going to amount to much in the form of rain. But for your Christmas Eve planner, obviously this first box that's being opened, we are already past that time frame. 48 degrees was the morning low temperature that I did have for the Macon area, but some areas got a little bit lower, down to 46 degrees. I think was the lowest I saw down in Eastman this morning. Heading into the afternoon, starting around 2 p.m., mostly sunny skies, and that's going to be the window where we hit that high temperature of 77. And then as you head into the evening time frame, really more so the nighttime hours by 8 p.m., 66 degrees and still some mostly clear skies. Like I said, Santa Claus should have a nice forecast as he makes his way through central Georgia. But speaking of Santa Claus, where is he currently located? If you are tracking with the Santa with the NORAD website, well, I do imagine when I was checking right before the stream started, it looked like he was making his way up towards China, so maybe approaching Shanghai from the island of Taiwan, and he will be delivering gifts over here in East Asia. He's already made plenty of stops down in Australia, down in Fiji. He made his way up to southern Russia, Japan, and down into Malaysia and kind of that area of the southern Pacific Ocean, but it looks like he's trekking across Asia now currently, and he's still on the other side of the world, but these areas are already into the nighttime hours for Christmas Eve. So many of them, especially the folks down in Australia and getting over into the Southeast Pacific, they are going to wake up probably within the next couple of hours and take a look at all the goodies that Santa Claus has brought them. But as of right now, the total gift tracker for how many gifts Santa has given out is around 2 billion gifts. And he hasn't even hit a majority of the world just yet. So he is going to have quite the statistics when it does come to how many gifts he has delivered over the course of this Christmas Eve. So let's talk about the fog. I did mention that could be a factor as we go into tomorrow morning. You do see patchy areas of that gray popping up all around central Georgia, and some of them are actually popping up over central Georgia as we go into the morning hours. Maybe a slightly better chance of seeing some of that limited visibility in some patches as we go into the morning hours for Christmas. But overall, it still looks like a story of some pretty good visibility. And as we transition to lunchtime, not dealing with that fog whatsoever anymore. And then as we go into Friday morning, that's when all that fog is going to be enveloped within all that cloud cover that we did see on Future View as we went into Friday morning. Could we see that creep over into central Georgia? I think there is a better chance than what Future View is hinting at as of right now. But just be prepared for maybe some limited visibility in light of the steady increase in moisture. And once again, as we go into Saturday morning, we could also see some limited visibility out and about if you do have any plans to travel pretty early in the morning hours. If you are having some travel plans, maybe say around lunchtime, just past lunchtime, your visibility is looking good to go. So over the next 3 days, today into tomorrow are basically a carbon copy forecast of one another. Just a slightly warmer morning tomorrow as you walk out the door early for Christmas. But then the afternoons, yes, unseasonably warm. However, you are pairing it up with drier weather. So anything that you get in the way of gifts, you have very, very nice weather. Just be sure to wear maybe the t-shirt and the shorts if you are planning on heading outside, maybe playing with some of those toys that Santa Claus brought you. And then as we go into Friday, a slightly cooler high temperature. That's really all dependent on the cloud cover. I think the high temperature, if we see mostly sunny skies, probably a little bit closer to 77, which you see for today and tomorrow. And I am holding on to that 10% chance of rain, which right now is looking likely that it will get extended into Saturday. But as of right now, we don't have Saturday on our short range models. So we are going to elect to keep it off the 7-day forecast until Future View gives us a better idea and a higher resolution look at it. So will 77 break a record? As of right now, 77 is forecasted to at least match the record later this afternoon. I have a high confidence in hitting that 77-degree mark. It's just a matter of, are we going to go above 77 degrees? Well, once again, like I've been saying all week long, I have more confidence in this afternoon being potentially record matching or record breaking of that high temperature of 77. I don't have as much confidence in hitting the 78-degree mark as we go into Christmas afternoon. In fact, we've hit the 78-degree mark 2 times over the past decade, both in 2015 and 2016. Earliest time we did that was back in 1982. And your record for today all time, we set it most recently back a decade ago in 2015. And then the earliest time that we did that was 1964. So over the past 10 years, I've been showing this graphic a lot over the past week because this Christmas, yes, while it may seem unseasonably warm, we can put it in reference from recent years. As recently as 2021, I'm on the wrong side of the graphic right here, 75. That was your high temperature on Christmas Day. Obviously, your high temperature is forecasted a little bit above that. 75 and 77, really not feeling all too different in nature. And your morning lows starting out around 48 degrees. Remember, that's what I had for your morning low temperature this morning, but I think our numbers will be slightly warmer than that as we go into tomorrow morning. But then both back-to-back years, 2015 and 2016, we did see a recorded high temperature of 78 degrees 2 years in a row. So that's obviously the warmest Christmas all time, especially when you pair it up with, I believe the year was 1982 back on that last graphic. So 3 times that we have hit the 78-degree mark on Christmas Day all time. Will we make it up there? I'm not as confident in that number as we go into tomorrow, but I do believe that today, this afternoon, could be a record-breaking Christmas Eve. So looking at the lights tonight, tomorrow, or even going into the day after Christmas, still looking like green lights all over the next couple of days. You may have to encounter a brief sprinkle shower, but most of you will probably be inside the car. But maybe if you're going to an outdoor display like downtown Macon and such, if you really are concerned about the rain, just grab the rain jacket. It's always better to be safe than sorry. However, I don't think rain is really going to pose an impact for any of the holiday festivities that you do have over the near future. So it does look like we'll have those spotty shower chances as we go into Saturday, but we'll still see some occasional clearing in the clouds. Still partly cloudy to maybe mostly cloudy skies as we go into the end of the weekend. But remember that frontal boundary that we have been talking about? It is trending a whole lot later than it has been over the last couple of days. We were thinking it was going to be Sunday night into early on Monday morning when the frontal boundary makes its passage through. Well, this is early Monday morning and it's still well up to the north of us. In fact, it actually looks like it is going to cross throughout the day on Monday, which makes me more confident in some slightly warmer numbers, maybe just still slightly above average as we go into Monday afternoon. But as the frontal boundary passes, doesn't look like it sends us much in the way of rain, maybe just a few scattered showers, and then cooler and drier air, some substantially cooler air is going to settle in as we go into Tuesday and of course as we go into New Year's Eve, which will be next Wednesday. Got to go ahead and start turning a little attention to the next approaching holiday. Obviously all the focus is on Christmas Eve today and Christmas Day tomorrow, but once you get into the weekend, I'm sure many of you are going to go ahead and transition into your plans that you do have to ring in the new year of 2026. So the last couple of days of 2025, just hard to believe how fast the year has flown by. So your afternoon highs, not going to change much really over the next 5 days. Like I said, I do expect an extended stretch of warmer weather, extended stretch of numbers in the 70s, and an extended number of above average days. But we will see this finally change as we go past Sunday. As of right now, it is looking like above average numbers as we go throughout the entirety of your weekend. And that goes for your morning lows as well. With the increase in cloud cover on occasion, if you do have some relatively dense cloud cover for some mornings, that is going to result in some warmer morning low values. That's why you do continue to see these numbers climb, while your afternoon high temperatures maybe go down just a touch. So we're going to have a lot less difference, say, between your morning lows and your afternoon highs if we are to have a mostly cloudy atmosphere, which it does look like we'll have our fair share of clouds in the forecast as we go throughout the weekend. I am thinking that we'll probably add a 10% chance of rain to Saturday, but still, if you have any plans Friday, Saturday, or Sunday, 10% chance of rain is no reason to cancel those plans whatsoever. Go ahead and keep them. Maybe just grab the rain gear to be better safe than sorry. Overall, it is still looking like a mostly dry forecast for most of central Georgia as we go into the weekend. Then that frontal boundary makes its passage through sometime throughout the afternoon on Monday. So yesterday I had a high temperature of 55 for Monday afternoon. I've elected to bump that up to 60 degrees, and I think that number will bump up even farther if that frontal boundary continues to trail later and later. We obviously have to have a couple of hours after the passage of the frontal boundary to start to feel that cooler air ushering in. And if the frontal boundary is coming through during that time where we typically would hit our high temperature on Monday, of course we are going to have our fair share of some dense cloud cover ahead of the frontal boundary. So that's why your high temperature is closer to average, but I imagine it's probably going to shape up to maybe be more like the low to maybe even the mid 60s. But I promise you, if you are searching for that colder air, it's going to be very well known as you walk out the door next Tuesday morning. 26 for a morning low temperature and 49 for a high temperature. We saw some models even going below 49 as of this morning, and the cold stretch will continue as we ring in the new year. So any New Year's celebrations, planning on going to the Buzzard Drop in Perry, maybe going to the Peach Drop in Atlanta, if they still do that. I know last year they weren't doing that, so we'll have to get back with you on terms of those plans. Or maybe you're going all out. You're flying up to the Big Apple and watching the ball drop in Times Square. It is going to be a very cold forecast up there in New York, number one, but down here in central Georgia, you're going to want to bring back those winter layers as we go into any New Year's celebrations. It's obviously the nighttime hours, a cooler time of the day, but it does look like the colder air mass sticks around as we go into the beginning of the new year. It does look like high temperatures only get an increase maybe into the mid 50s as we roll into Wednesday, Thursday, and towards the end of the week in those first couple of days of 2026 next year. So that's going to do it for your extended forecast here this Christmas Eve. We'll be back here tomorrow, and I'll give you a brief recap about what we did today in terms of maybe those record-breaking highs, what's in store for the rest of your Christmas holiday, and try to fine-tune that forecast for the first part of the weekend just a little bit better. But until then, I hope you have all of the fun and all of the good spirit right now for the holidays. Continue to be safe. Happy holidays. Merry Christmas. And if I don't see you tomorrow, then I won't be back for quite some time. I will actually see you next year. But make sure to tune in at 11 a.m. tomorrow. We'll have a look at everything you need to know for your extended forecast on Christmas morning. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you tomorrow.